Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another webinar. This is the first of our series going into some deep dive areas of the software. If you haven't joined us previously, welcome. And if you have, welcome as well. It's going to be an exciting new series. If you haven't had a chance, make sure you jump onto the YouTube channel and dive into our webinar Lunch and Learn series. It's a 12-part volume series that goes through essentially setting up the software so that you can get the best out of the platform for your business. This series will focus on going a little bit deeper. So the first series was designed to get you up and running fast, give you some wins, teach you around the fundamentals of the software, how it interacts, how it works together to give you the best levels of automation. And this series, we're going to take it one step further. Often in those webinars, we don't get a chance to really dive in to a lot of the functionality in depth. So this will be a great opportunity for us to now dive into each of those areas and go a little bit further, and also cover some new developments over the last few months while that series has been created, so you can see and use more of the functionality for Jobman for your business. Today's webinar is going to focus on the dashboard and CRM side. And one thing I'd like to really cover as much as possible in this new series is frequently asked questions. So quite often we do training sessions, we have implementers, we have a lot of people, a lot of resources at your disposal to really help get this software up and running for you. And from experience from a lot of those sessions, we learn about the common questions people ask that maybe the documentation or other videos don't cover enough. So this is a great opportunity to be able to jump in and go a little bit further. So today's agenda is really to look a little bit deeper into the dashboard and CRM capability of Jobman, sort of explain its use cases, the breakdown, and some more in-depth functionality around what you can use these for to best benefit your business, really. So agenda screens and activity screens and recent tasks is something we'll cover on the dashboard, so you can get a good understanding of where they are used and how to build them, and I guess what more you can do with them. And then a little bit further into the CRM side, you can, of course, go back and see webinar volume Lunch and Learn 1 and 2, and there'll be some good basic setup there. So if you haven't seen those, I probably recommend you go watch those first, and that'll give you an idea of how to set these up. And then this webinar will make a lot more sense with how to use the functionality further. So by the end of the webinar, we hope that you'll have a better understanding of Jobman's CRM feature, how it's broken down, how we separate it into two areas of the software, and how you can maximize their usage, how to build and use activity screens, and how to build and use agenda screens. And of course, my favorite part, some common FAQs, some tips and tricks to help get you using the software to its fullest potential. So one of the good things about this series, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on slides. I want to spend as much time as possible in the software live, really giving you the best use cases and understanding, and a recording of how to set these things up and use them. So let's dive in. So on your first screen, whether you've just signed up or you've been using the software for a while, first thing you'll notice is your dashboard. The ultimate aim for the dashboard is to put the most amount of information we can give you as a company in front of you every day. Now, if you're an administrator of the software, this is going to look something along these lines, where you can build activity screens to break down and see what staff are logged in, what they're working on, total hours for the day, your agenda screens to break down your operational areas, and your recent tasks. This is a fantastic part of the software as you get comfortable with measuring time and completing tasks, and really using the flow system of Jobman to help make your manufacturing and your lead processes better, easier, smoother, more transparent, and most importantly, make sure things aren't being missed. You'll find that the use case for recent tasks, it will become your sort of day-to. It's like the last few tasks that you've either signed on and completed or put time to, or most commonly it is used for operational areas that are tasks that never get completed. For example, first FAQ tip and trick, quite often people ask, it's fantastic that the team can measure time versus actual operations in leads and jobs, but what about the rest of their timesheet? It's time spent not specifically on an actual lead, or not actually cutting, for example, in the machine shop. They do other things during the day, which is not technically what we consider productive tasks for the software reporting point of view, but they're productive for your business. For example, sweeping the floor, unpacking trucks, tidying up, moving stock takes. In the office, it might be things like basic admin, general emails, all that sort of useful tasks that they complete during the day and staff do. And you want that being trapped against their time. So you can build, and I'm going to show you some of these today, some operations in which they can just sit here and they never complete them, but they can put time against them, drop and drag them into timesheets, or if they're in the kiosk, just start and pause those operations. You can never be logged into 2 operations at once. So one of the great things about that is once they've done it once, it'll appear on their recent tasks. They can put time to it. For example, if you have an attendance, like a general attendance you want to measure, put that task in a what we call a common job. Staff come in the morning, the first thing they do is start that operation, go have a coffee, get ready, have your 2-minute toolbox meeting. And then as soon as they're ready to dive in, grab the agenda screen and start doing their first tasks. So that's what the recent task part is about. Agenda screens we've been through previously are designed in the software to give you visibility around each of your operational areas, but also as a directional flow for those operations for the staff. So they're extremely important. And then activity screens are a breakdown of all your staff, so you can see everybody that's in the software. Obviously, it's a demo site. It's just me in here. Hopefully, you will see more staff in yours, and the time that's being recorded and the recent task they're working on. So this just gives you a really quick, fast, accurate way of seeing who's logged on for the day, what's going on, no problems. And also, if potentially you have someone on leave and you need to remember to put in their time for their leave, you can go in and put that in and double check that that's come through okay on the activity screens. So where we want to deep dive this today, because this is all pretty straightforward and a setup we've covered previously, there's plenty of documentation around it, but where I really want to deep dive is some common use cases to make this even better for your software. For example, in activity screens, I'm just going to go into my settings, activity screens. Currently, I've got one. A lot of businesses, however, like to break down their staff into areas. So you might have, for example, a production manager, and your production manager is responsible for seeing everything in the production flow. So you might want them to see the activity screens for the team, but rather than to see everyone, they don't need to know what accounts are doing or what admin's doing or the ops is doing, is what the sales team's doing. They're most interested in seeing, for example, what the installation team is doing, making sure they're logging on and doing everything they need to do for the day. So I can set an activity screen here, and I can just choose on that activity screen just to show the installers in my crew. And this could be functionally anything. These could be anyone. You could split this into operational areas. Some people have split into office, manufacturing, dispatch, for example. It's completely up to you. The second part to that is setting a bit of an aggregated time, the time when you expect people to be working on your operations. So you have payroll and timesheets to cover extraneous tasks outside of anything that would happen in your workhouse. It's fine. The time will still be trapped. But from an activity point of view, if your office opens at 7 and you expect everyone to be there before 7 and clocking on by 7, this is how we can make sure that's happening. So if they haven't clocked on by 7, they will be red on that activity screen. And now I've built that new staff list. I've got some more activity screens there to be able to break down the staff a little bit easier. So the first step we always say in the software to get up and running is keep it general, keep it wide, just get using everything. So just build an all staff, but as you get more comfortable with the software, we want you to get more out of it. So breaking down your activity screens into operational areas makes a lot of sense. So that's the first one. The second big one is agenda screens. Now, agenda screens are fantastically powerful. Like I said, they are the driving force behind the automation in your business. So you've done the hard work, you've gone in, you've set up your workflows, you've mapped your operations, you've linked them to your labor centers for your capacity, and now you're starting to run some leads and jobs. And what Jobman's designed for is not to have you necessarily now have to go in and schedule every operation or task to people. We want to be able to build an area where those operations flow through automatically, and then our team members can jump on and grab those operations. So that's that real lean manufacturing mentality of put the information out there and then allow the team to work without ever really needing to stop. Previously, without Jobman, they probably had to stop when they will finish a task, come find someone, find out what their next operation is. find the job number, and then maybe that you're using cheat sheets or something along those lines, and they write down the number and they average their time throughout the day. And you weren't getting a lot of visibility or reporting, but more important, there's a lot of wasted productive time. So agenda screens solve that problem. That's the first problem they solve for your business, is being able to put things into operational areas. Most companies would start with a very simplified screen setup. So you would have something like a job screen and a lead screen. So all of my operations, as I add more leads or jobs or work orders, will start coming into the software and flowing straight away. And the great thing about agenda screens is you can see it very fast. It happens in front of your eyes. So it's a really good system to know that what you've built is working properly. Now, it's a couple of important things to note about agenda screens. The first one, and this is a common FAQ, is why have I started a job or a lead and there's a task that I've set up in an operational area, for example, production drafting, but I'm not seeing any tasks appearing here. You've added jobs, you've set start dates, you've done everything right, you've got a workflow. Why are those tasks not coming into the agenda screens? That's a great question. The first part to that is the fact that Jobman is designed to be an operational manager in your business. It's a tool utilized to automate, but most importantly, manage and schedule so that you can take that time off your shoulders and be spending more time working on the business, not in the business. So the way our system works is we don't want tasks to be presented to the staff before they're able to be done. For example, in my workflow, I'm going to go dive in the workflow so this makes a little bit more sense from an operational point of view. We have tasks set up so that we can follow through in a particular order to make sure things are done, not just on time and on target, but done in the correct order, the correct process. So for example, my drafting comes under my detailing and my create CNC code, which is fine. However, this can't be done until the check measure's been done. This is an example of a joinery workflow. We can't, until we've gone and checked the measurements of the kitchen, bathroom, laundry, ensuite, or whatever it is we're building, or in other industries, until you've done the site measure or actually located the specs for the actual contract for what you're going to manufacture. We can't then give that information to the team to be able to start putting into CAD software and drawing it because the details are not accurate. Similarly, the purchase ordering can't happen until the production drafting's been done. So until we've optimized our bill of materials and worked out exactly how much we're going to need to order, we can't have people purchase ordering. And if you flow on from that effect, you find that the system works in such a way as to best benefit your business. Again, for example, I can't start cutting and machining or welding or folding or pressing or however your operational manufacturing business works until the purchase ordering is done as the materials have been received. So Jobman knows this. What it does is it says, okay, until this has been ticked off, I will not put this task on the agenda screen. So that's part one. Part two is, okay, I understand that. It makes sense. I want this to follow my flow and manage my business for me. That's the best automation. That's why I'm here. However, I've put in a lot of allowances into these jobs to sort of give it a nice even flow. What happens when tasks get ticked off ahead of time? Great question. Absolutely, the software is designed to handle that. So even though it will not put these tasks on that agenda screen until such point as they're ready to be done, I can't start cutting and machining until I have the goods for this job to be able to do it. If the purchase ordering and the CNC code creation for my machining is done early, let's say it was booked in for Tuesday, which means I would normally start cutting Wednesday, but they tick it off Tuesday morning and they're on track and moving fast. Even though this task is set up for the Wednesday in my job workflow, it will still, in fact, go into the agenda screen so that if the cutting team is also working ahead of schedule, we're not going to slow them down. We're going to keep working forward. We're going to keep allowing those tasks to come up and they can keep on top of it, which means their screens are always going to be green, which means they're always manufacturing ahead or on time of schedule, and everything in your business is now running really smoothly and well. So that's an important differentiator to understand with the agenda screens. They're designed for that transparency of flow, but we're never going to stop someone working ahead of schedule. We'll stop them doing tasks they can't do yet, but not ahead of schedule. So the third commonly asked question we get asked is, okay, that's fantastic. That makes sense for the majority of my flow. However, there are tasks that can be achieved insular of the rest of the flow, or there are tasks that can be achieved that do not require other people to tick off certain tasks beforehand. So in this example I've got running here, for example, Most of the tasks make a lot of sense. So I can't cut an edge until I've purchase ordered. I can't assemble and quality check until either parts have been received back from the painter or the from an outsourcing or internally, however you handle this. This needs to be done in a fairly good order. And obviously I can't dispatch the goods out ready for install if it hasn't been made. However, I've got a task here called book trades. And book trades is designed for the admin team to go in, and on top of manufacturing and installing kitchens, this particular company also handles project management stuff such as electricians, plumbers. They provide a complete service, so that when they build a kitchen for you, all your appliances are installed, everything's beautifully painted, the plumbing's set, they've put the sinks in, they've dropped the bench tops on. It's a complete job, beautiful end-to-end process for you. Even though they don't necessarily do the electrical plumbing work themselves, they can certainly do it. Now, right now, this task has a requirement, and that requirement is all previous tasks need to be completed before I can book the trades, which is not necessarily true. So long as the manufacturing is on process and I know what my installation date will be, I can virtually do this task at any point, so long as the job has been set up. So the way that I can build congruent tasks, or what I call tasks that can be handled outside of the normal manufacturing chain, is inside your workflows. You can come in, you can say, okay, book trades is my operation, rough time. It is due as per my workflow, roughly around this area. This is normally where we do it. However, I don't actually need all previous tasks for this to be completed. This can be done independent of the workflow by the office team, so long as the job is started. So one way of handling that is to change the requires from selected to the only thing we need to do to make sure that this can be done. So in this instance, I'm going to set it up versus job setup. So long as the very first task is done, this job is set up and we're moving forward. When I create a job now and this target date comes in, as long as this is ticked off, this will now appear in an agenda screen so the team can do it at any point. So that's absolutely how you can handle what I call congruent tasks. So tasks that don't require things to be done in a necessary flow. And there's a lot of examples, hundreds of use cases I can think of this. Benchtop operators, for example, aren't reliant on the rest of the team where they're up to the cabinetry. Obviously, you can't install benchtops until the rest of the cabinetry has been done. However, they can operate all day. They can just bang out benchtops all day, job after job after job, and they will just stack up. And when those jobs reach a certain point of completion, they can go in. So this is another perfect example of where you could have an operation in your workflow that is not reliant on the tasks after it. You can even set it to none. So basically, as soon as you start the job, those tasks will start appearing in those agenda screens. And just that one simple change will allow for better automation in your agenda screen. Now, the question we often get is, why don't we manage that from an agenda screen point of view? Like, sometimes companies want to see everything. And the reason is because the agenda screens are really designed as the final loop of automation for the software. If the tasks have to be done in a particular order, we want them to be handled in a particular order. If you're looking for visibility of critical dates, and this is a common question we get, agenda screens are not your best answer. The platform is designed where agenda screens are like the to-do list. They're everybody's task list. So this is what's happening. This is the order it's done in. Tasks will flow in. Everything's automated. Absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for visibility around critical dates, our recommendation is absolutely build a target calendar filter, which we'll go into in a future webinar, and have that particular date filtered. For example, install or dispatch being a critical date. Once everything's installed and out, and we want to look at the next month, have that as a set filter. Everybody knows what those critical dates are. They can even view that on their kiosk. So that's how we can keep everyone on track and see those critical dates. But when it comes to agenda screens, it's really about the to-do list. Now, there are a lot of other useful functionalities around agenda screens. One of the most common questions we get is, okay, fantastic, we understand the principle of lead manufacturing, Cam. However, in our business, where they're a small team or we're quite a precise team, and we actually do like to go in and set particular staff members to particular tasks in an operational flow. Yes, everybody in this group can technically handle it, but we like to direct the manufacturing. So one of the advantages of having your agenda screens broken down quite a lot. And don't be scared to build a lot of agenda screens. We've got companies that, have 40 plus agenda screens. So they've really broken down their manufacturing and lead processes into really insular pods, which makes it really easy to manage, really easy to be visible, really easy to see what's going on. And one of the advantages of that is I can actually perform that task from the agenda screen. So as a production manager or administrator, I can come into the software and I can say, yep, absolutely. Whilst any of our usual members can handle the edging. For this particular machine installation, I want to use Deb. She's my most skilled machinist, and this is quite a complicated job. So I'm going to assign it to Deb. I can do it from this screen. So one of those questions people ask is, do I have to go into every job, into every task, and then set up those members if that's how I want to operate the platform? No. One of the advantages of having these agenda screens is if that's how you run your business, you can do it from here. And this makes it really easy because I can come in the morning, I can quickly look through the tasks that are being set in my areas on that day for drafting, manufacture, machining, install, for example, and I can start assigning those operations. It's not an ideal way to use the platform. Obviously, we want to save you time, not give you more work to do. But on the instance where that's how you handle your business, absolutely, the software can both handle it and is designed for it. That will also send a notification to Deb. So she'll get a notification on her kiosk, which says, hey, you've been assigned this task particularly. And for the rest of the team, this is now visible live on the screen that these are the members of this task. This is who we expect to do it. If you want to take it one step further, and the reason I bring this up is because, again, it's a very common question, and you only want people to see what they've been assigned. Inside these agenda screens, when you build them and you start assigning your staff to them, when I assign Deb to my machining list, she will now see all the machining tasks that come in for cut and edge. If I only want her to see tasks that are hers, that I've specifically assigned, then you can do this at the agenda screen stage, and we can limit it. And now when Deb logs into her kiosk, all she will see on that screen, she won't see both jobs on there. She'll only see the one that's been assigned to her. So you can really utilize these to almost granularly, not almost, in fact, you can almost particularly create staff-centric agenda screens and their tasks. So you can have a lot of fine control management. Obviously, as always, we recommend it's not the best way to utilize the software. Having operational areas makes a lot more sense. The main one being is if I go through and I set up all these tasks and I assign them to the staff and someone calls in, which they always do, sick in that morning, you've got to then go back in and reassign those tasks, pull them off, try and work out what's being missed and why. You're starting to get into that rhythm, which becomes a bit more complicated. Whereas with agenda screens, it's very easy. If I know, for example, that Deb's going to be away for a week, rather than have to go through and find all the tasks assigned to Deb and rework my scheduling and understand my capacity, I can simply come in and say, James LeBron, who's normally in the assembly team, I can now, just for this week, attach him to this agenda screen. Now, when he opens his kiosk, he will see his usual assembly tasks, but he'll also now see the cut and edge tasks for machining. And it was that easy. And I just have a quick 2-second conversation with James in the morning, say, look, Deb's away this week. Do you mind jumping in the machining and covering that end? And that's it. I've just rescheduled all that work. Everything moves forward, no bottlenecks. Absolutely fantastic. So a lot of use cases here. Now, the other thing I want to quickly show you is that these can be sorted, which is very useful for the main screen. For a lot of companies, they sort of like to build their agenda screens and then put them in an order that makes sense. Keep in mind that if your staff are not linked to these agenda screens, they're not going to see them all. This is just your view, so you can overview. If you do have production managers or sales managers and you want them to view these screens, no matter how insular you've sort of broken them down, absolutely add them to them so they've got that visibility. They might not necessarily be their task for the day, but at least they can manage them, see what people are working on if they need to jump in, shoot priority up or down, for example, get things moving. They've got all the power at their fingertips. So absolutely, it is definitely worth moving these around to make a bit of sense to follow your process. So now I know, production drafting moves into the machining, moves into the manufacture. It makes sense now when I'm looking at my dashboard to understand that's the order in which they go. Fantastic. Yep. And then assuming I was, say, a production manager, for example, and I was not attached to leads and projects, I wouldn't even see those two agenda screens here. So absolutely fantastic. Last part to that I'm going to mention is priorities. If I didn't have a chance to deep dive into this before, I certainly want to bring it up because it is a big use case for the software. Under your settings agenda screens is also where you can set your priorities. So you can come in here. Now, you do not have to make this as complicated as I've made it. We have 5 layers of priority at our manufacturing just to give me maximum control and also allow me to shunt tasks. So the way agenda screens work is by default, Jobman is going to put everything in order by date. Makes the most sense, right? Everything, all the jobs and leads you're adding want to be done by a certain date. Therefore, you want Jobman to schedule those tasks in an order so they get done so we can move on to the next jobs. But in the real world of manufacturing, we fully understand that every day things change. Sometimes those changes are small. Supplier might ring you and say, the shipment you were expecting on Monday is not going to arrive on Monday. It's going to be here Tuesday. And you're like, okay, not a problem. Jump into my target calendar, drop and drag the operation for cutting and move that to Tuesday, and make sure the flow follows on. There we go. I've just rescheduled that entire job. Jobman for the win. Fantastic, easy, awesome use case for the software. So rescheduling in the software is very easy. But sometimes you might have multiple projects or jobs on the go that are quite large, and things do kind of change quite fluidly. So one of the common questions we get is, okay, so Jobman's done the smarts here, but what if I need to actually push a job up the priority chain? Because this now becomes the priority for our system. And it's very easy to do. It can be done again from these agenda screens. I can come in and I get a phone call in the morning. There's a VIP client. This job needs to be pushed up because they've had to bring forward the installation date. I can use the hyperlink to come directly to the job. I love the fact you don't have to go messing around the software. And then I can change the priority from this screen. So this now, maybe not priority 1, that's like urgent, critical, absolutely must be done today, but let's move this up the agenda screen nice and easily to priority 2. And I can even put in a message which will appear on the agenda screen for the entire team. Team, this is now our priority job. This can be done for leads, can be done for projects, all there. A couple of things will happen. It will now get a color stamp. You'll notice that it's been updated on the priority. And then if I go back into that dashboard and I want to look at those jobs that are on the go, you'll notice that that has now been moved directly to the top of the agenda screen. Bang. So it's very obvious for everyone that this has through. And this priority will follow all the tasks. So it will follow it through each of the agenda screens as the purchase ordering gets done, into the production drafting, into the cutting, into the assembly, and so on and so forth to install. This won't go away until you change it. So it's a really easy, fast way to override Jobman Smarts for the automation of scheduling and push jobs and leads up and down priority to make this screen really work for you. Again, don't be scared. Add a few of these. You can always go back and change them. They're very easy to build. My last note I will mention on these agenda screens is that when you're building them, start as much as possible. So when you're putting together your new agenda screen here, start as much as possible by going wide. Allow the software the most amount of latitude to put information on the screen. So for example, I generally would advise clients to, when they start building them, is just build them based on the operational areas. Don't worry about the type, don't worry about the status, don't worry about the labor center. Just choose the operations you want to show on this agenda screen. And as you get more comfortable with the software, you will be able to make these more particular. But I generally say start wide, so at least the information flows in and it starts making sense and you can see it working. And then you can refine from there. Just so you're aware of what these do, types allow you to have, as you know, with job and lead types, break agenda screens down into different areas. So for example, you might have a manufacturing process for doors, which has a different process. So depending on the type of door will influence the type of job, will influence the process. So you might have separate agenda screens going to 2 different operational areas that in your manufacturing process that do the same thing, but they do them in a different order. So you actually have 2 pods set up for that. So types, you can manage these by type. Obviously, to begin with, like I said, just put all in. We want as much information going in as possible, and then we can refine from there. Statuses allows you to break down the operations and say, hey, I don't want the team to see these operations until the job is in that particular status, irrelevant of where the rest of the manufacturing flow is up to. And then labor centers is the ability to break down commonality operational areas. For example, a lot of companies have multiple CNC machines, or they might have multiple lasers, or they might have multiple cold saws, for example. So you might have an agenda screen for CNC machine 1 and CNC machine 2. So whilst I'm going to set the agenda screens up to both pull the same operation, which is machining. I can set up a labor center for one, so that I know the capacity of one machine. I can set up a labor center for the second, and I want this agenda screen to read just the machining that's been allocated to this labor center, machine 1 and machine 2, for example. There's a lot of use cases here. You'll certainly get a lot of use out of them, and definitely play. Have a good play in the software. You can't really break things. That's the thing I love about Jobman. You can't really break stuff. If you build something that doesn't quite work, either you can modify it pretty easily, you can delete it, start again. It's not a problem. So that's your dashboard. This is your powerhouse, as you can see, because I've worked on some tasks recently. These have flown in. And then the last part I just want to quickly show you about that is obviously that in working order. So we've got some jobs. We've got a job here that's in pre-production that started. So it's on my old jobs list, but it's like, why is it not showing in my drafting screen? And that's the last FAQ we often get. And the possibility is usually based on 2 reasons. Number 1, we haven't told Jobman when we want this job to happen. So target dates are extremely important in this software. Target dates drive everything. Target dates are the powerhouse of the software. So you can either set a target date for your workflows and work backwards. For example, if I know this job has to be in by let's say the 30th of August, I can tell Jobman, this needs to be in by the 30th of August. Please recalculate all tasks. I want you to calculate all the tasks before and after, because there are tasks after your critical date, obviously sending bills, final invoices. I want it to check my capacity. I want to make sure that it's giving me the most accurate lead times and details and days based on these operations. And now doing that, Jobman will work backwards and will actually calculate based on all those factors when we need to kick this job off to get it rolling. So that could be reason 1. You might not have your target dates and start dates set yet. That's why it's not showing in there. But the most common reason would simply be we are not yet up to that process. So in order to get to the drafting process or the detailing process, depending on what your business calls it, the job setup and check measure has to be done. Like I said, someone has to go in and make sure that the details are right before we start creating that code. So not a problem. I've gone in, completed those operations. If I come back into my dashboard, you can see immediately there is now one job ready for the team to do the production drafting. So that's the most common reason why that isn't the case. So hopefully that's really helped you in that area of the software. I know it's a big area and it seems so small. It's just the front dashboard, but there's so much power and flexibility you can use there for your business to get a lot out of the software to really help manage everything, keep everything on track, and of course, give you a lot of visibility. That's what it's all about. So the second part for today's webinar is I want to go into a little bit further detail around the CRM capability of Jobman. It's a big first starting point for a lot of companies. Most businesses, especially when they're starting with manufacturing, the very first thing they realize is once you start, refining your manufacturing process and maybe bringing on some machinery to help improve your actual manufacture, the next bottleneck then usually is the number of clients coming through your door, the amount of business you've got, and being able to manage that business in an intelligent way, and obviously look for opportunities to grow that business so that you can be funding more business in your manufacturing will in turn help ease that bottleneck of further down the chain. So that's why Jobman really is an end-to-end system. It's built and designed to follow your manufacturing process from yay to nay. So our contact management system, or CRM, customer relationship management system, is built into 2 areas. We've got contacts and we've got leads. Now, in previous webinars, I've shown how to connect up to your accounting software to pull in all your contacts and your staff or your suppliers and the contacts you've got, and also what implication that has for the software. But I wanted to go a little bit further today and answer some common questions we get around these names here and some of the functionality in this area. For example, in your business, presumably, it's not always the case, but it's the majority of the cases, most companies we deal with don't simply have one client type. You might have private, you might have residential, you might have builder work, you might have commercial work, you might have account clients. There are a lot of different types of contacts you have. And the way that contact interacts with your software or is used in your software is important to you to be able to break down. Now, from an accounting point of view, there's a common question we get. Accounting platforms don't care. So accounting platforms break your contacts into two types: their customers or their suppliers. And the reason they do that is because a customer is someone you invoice and a supplier is someone you bill. Easy. Some smarter accounting platforms, such as Xero, do have things such as contact tags, but ultimately, from an API point of view, when it all boils down to it, all they care about is the customer you're feeding us a customer, someone you're going to invoice, or someone you're going to bill, a supplier. So for that reason, when you're setting up your accounting software, and I'll just show you this quickly, I'm sure you've seen it in the previous videos, but inside the accounting, when you actually are setting up your integration, Jobman will ask you what you want to call them, because all the accounting software cares about, is it a customer or a supplier? You can call these whatever you like, and you need a default. So if the majority of your business is, for example, residential, connect all your contacts to residential and connect all your suppliers to suppliers. Now, the reason why, I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but the reason why this actually has to be done is because you can call your suppliers whatever you like. And in Jobman, we are a CRM. So we encourage clients to both separate their contacts into not just customer, but into the types of customer, because it impacts on reporting and impacts on workflows. A lot of automation that comes from that. Same with suppliers. You might have your suppliers broken down into different industries. So you might have one for your hardware, one for your wood or sheet, one for your painting, for example. So you can actually call, you can have multiple supplier types all linked to the contact type supplier. However, again, accounting software doesn't care. They're either suppliers or customers. So setting that up in here, basically what that allows you to do is say, every time when we first do this sync, and we'll just use Xero as the example, you bring down all my contacts, what do you want Jobman to call them? Just for the first import. And it's like, well, most of my work is residential. So just call all my customers residential and just call all my suppliers suppliers. Easy. The good news is, however, is once that import has happened, because you have contact types in Jobman, you can easily modify and change this data. So for example, if these 5 contact types here aren't actually residential, they're architects that I do business with, I can quickly and easily change them to architects. Now, from your accounting point of view, again, it doesn't care. It's just going to receive 132 columns as a customer because you invoice them. And I could change this supplier, ABC Furniture, to a furniture supplier. Your accounting software doesn't care. It's just going to receive them as ABC Furniture supplier. This is for internal use for Jobman. It's very important because it allows you now to break down, filter, and most importantly, report on the amount of work you're doing for contacts. So this value column you see here, this is drawing from the lifetime value of invoicing you've done with that contact or supplier. So when we're reporting, we have the ability to say, well, I can see, I can start to see these values as they come into my lead reporting or my job reporting for the total historic value of this, and it can be exported. So even year on year, you can export directly from this list, filter out all your suppliers, or you might want to actually separate them out and have a look at those values and see how much you're spending with each of your suppliers. But then that'll give you a really good breakdown, not just of how much work you've done with people, but how much different type of work you've done, which is very important. First major importance of having a CRM in your business is understanding the type of work you're doing and which is most profitable. This will give you the lifetime value, and then you can run a report on the job cost values and say, okay, if our business traditionally does 30% residential, 30% commercial, and 30% builder, which of those is giving us the greatest value? Where are we getting the most ease of work, the most volume of work, the most new contacts, the most new quotes, most new leads? What's our win rate? All this stems from just that very easy consideration of software. And that might in turn then dictate your marketing spend each year. If you're spending $5,000 a year putting an advertisement into a local rag or something like that goes out to people and is just basically private work, and you spend $5,000 a year, and last year you picked up 3 clients and it was a total of $10,000 worth of business, probably not worth spending that $5,000. You know what I mean? So that's just another way in which Jobman can help you with that information. Now, the other thing that's important to note here is that for a lot of companies, contact and contact person are either one and the same or separated for an important reason. So whilst the contact is always going to be the person paying the bill or receiving the bill. So for example, if you do builder work, the builder is paying the bill. However, every time you run a lead, and we certainly cover lead management, we'll be going and deep diving that in our next webinar. When we start the lead, we will then separate it and say, well, yes, whilst the builder is the contact, I actually come in and I've got differentials for the site address and the people I will be dealing with on that particular lead in that job. But ultimately, all the business we do over the year is with ABC Building, for example. So all the columns in the states for any of the pages you see on Jobman are unique. So that means they're unique to me, which means I can have my setup totally different to how someone else is set up. And because my job involves lead management, there's other details I want beyond simply the name of the contact and the type and the value. There are things I want to be able to see, for example, who's the primary contact person, so that I can go in and quickly and easily contact that person if I need to talk to them. Do I need to see the addresses of those areas so I can filter and break down this information? Potentially, I might be doing a lead run. I might want to go out there and see, hey, break down all my contacts, filter them, and give me the closest to furthest, or local area by state, for example. You can also add in very important information such as source. So this is a good marketing filtration tool. We highly recommend you build some lead details or contact details around how did you find this contact? How'd they come to you? You know, I mean, it's a very good first question when talking to people when they come to the door. You know, outside of people you do regular work with, like your referred clients or clients that are on account that you do business with all the time, setting that source up and being able to filter on it. And of course, see that information on both export and also be able to filter inside the columns, very important. And then I can add in, you know, further points of data from there for things like, actually it'd be handy to have like a personalized account number for these people. I might commonly need to just quickly want to be able to see their, you know, their email, so I can just copy directly into an email, or their phone number, all that information I want at my fingertips. And just like that, I'm starting to expand my contact management so I can really see what needs to be done, and who I'm dealing with, how much business I'm doing with them, and, you know, filtering this information. Now, obviously, I haven't got any value set in my system right now because it's a thing, but I have had one supplier I've done some work with. There you go. So this is also a very handy tool. If you just want to quickly filter out and see, you know, who you're doing the most amount of business with over the year, you can absolutely sort based on that column, which is cool. And most of the columns in there are sortable as well. So that makes life nice and easy. For most businesses, though, you would simply be sorting on the name. So it makes it nice and easy. And then the other advantage of turning on columns is it improves my search capability. So rather than simply being limited to just the name, with more columns open, I can now search for more information. For example, I start typing in Partridge, I can bring up the fact that the primary contact person was Bob Partridge, even though you can't see any of that information on the base side. So having a few more columns absolutely is very useful for being able to filter and use this information. The second part to the contact management system is it's not simply designed as an area where you can go in and see this information and link up to your accounting software. It's really the first point of contact in the software where you can start getting some accountability and reporting. What I mean by that is there's actually a lot of functionality inside these contacts. For example, when I say that a CRM or a customer relationship management system is broken into two in our system, it's done intentionally because not everyone who contacts you will become a lead in a job. So being able to filter and separate those details is very important. However, you might want to use automation where via like our API with third-party development such as Zapier, for example, and you might use something like MailChimp. And you want an automation where every time someone fills out a website form, it creates a new contact in Jobman and then also adds them to your mailing list. So whilst might not be doing business with you yet, they might have just reached out and be inquiring. It's good to keep in touch. It's good to have them on your list and allow you some extra marketing. And maybe in the future, they might pick up some business. So when I talk about contacts, I really mean that first step, opportunity. It's the opportunity. The opportunity then becomes the lead when it becomes real, when we're going to quote and turn it into a job. But there's a lot I can still do to encourage or communicate or, you know, have transparency in my software around talking to our opportunities. One of the most important ones, of course, is the email in and out client. So new contact comes from a website form. If you want to use automation or you just enter it manually, it's completely up to you. Add the new contact in. First thing you might want to do is you might want to build a contact email, which is built and designed with a template to basically give them some information. Hey, thanks for reaching out. There's a bit of information around our company. We certainly look forward to taking next steps and being going to help you with your journey. And perhaps we are the right company for you to do business. fantastic, nice and easy. You can build templates. We've covered this in previous webinars, and I'll be deep diving even further into other webinars. Any contact persons linked to that particular contact will appear here. You can CC yourselves in or your sales team in if you want other people to be ready and prepared for the fact this contact might be coming through. So there's a lot of information. We've also got file storage set up and connected to each of your contacts. So before they're even a lead, you've got an area where, hey, someone sent us through an inquiry, it was an email, I don't want it to get lost, put the contact into Jobman and drop and drag the couple of spec drawings they're looking for as a starting point. Great, we've got that information, it's somewhere, it's localized, but most importantly, it's visible to the whole team. You also see the life cycle of invoices, jobs, leads, and quotes. So this is a really good, what I call roundhouse area to see information for clients. And even on the dashboard, again, these dashboards, all about visibility in Jobman, I can get a really good feel for how much work we're starting to do with these companies. So I've just brought on Asgard. We're starting to do some work with them. You can see we've got a couple of different jobs. We've done some quotes. You can start to see some of the activity coming through here. And if I need to see all the jobs filtered with Asgard, rather than have to go into jobs and filter and mess around, I can come into the contact and I can just go, okay, Jobman, give me a filtered list of all the work we're currently doing with Asgard. I can see I've got some jobs live. There's some values here. As soon as those were to be invoiced and paid, the contact value would increase and obviously would start stacking up. And I could see the lifetime of my business dealt with that customer or supplier, which is absolutely fantastic. So there's a lot of functionality right from the get-go in Jobman, just between these two screens. I mean, there's so much information, there's so much usability. As always, you know, the point to the software is that it's highly flexible. I can have multiple contact persons, by the way. This is very important. The reason we separate them is, again, from an accounting point of view, accounting platforms only care about who pays the bill. This is a CRM. So just because I'm dealing with Asgard, I might have multiple contact persons that I'm going to need to get within the company or externally. And then I can add other contact people into jobs and leads so that they can be emailed as part of this contact chain as well, simply by creating them as a contact. So if, for example, this is a builder job, and there's an architect involved in this process, I can absolutely build that architect as a contact. So now I've got them in my CRM. I've got a reference to them. I've got history. I've got reporting. And I can come back through and say, absolutely fantastic. I can now add that person and their email into email chains. So they're kept CC'd in a loop when we're doing important job emails and keeping the client up to date with where we're up to. So lots of information here. As always, the street address is Google linked. So lots of ease of information. And one of the last areas I want to quickly show you is the payment terms and bill terms. So a lot of people, it's a common FAQ we get, how do I set differential discounts for clients I might work with? So for example, this might be a big builder, you do a lot of work with them, and as a standard, you give them a 5 or 10% discount on every job. Rather than have to think about it in every site, every single quote, I can apply it here. Also, you have the ability to modify and change the invoices or bills if they're a supplier. So some of your suppliers bill and pay within 14 days. I can set it here just so when I'm using the automation of Jobman, I create those purchase order bills or I create those invoices. It immediately knows this is the client, this is the information that's relevant to them. I can set that up all here. I don't have to worry about it again. Set and forget. Certainly a big part of Jobman's mantra. So lots of information here, lots of use. In our next webinar, we will be diving a bit deeper into then the lead process, which I think is very important, second half to a CRM, and a lot of the common questions we get around that. For now, though, I will leave you with some of the more important bits you can do directly from a contact. So the most common one is, of course, the contacts come in, they're an opportunity, the conversation heats up. Now we're going to move it forward. So we want to create a lead, get that rocking. You do have the option to create a quote. However, keep in mind, quoting has to be linked to leads in Jobman. So there's transparency, reporting, and authenticity in the software. So you will not be able to create a quote to create a lead. So create a lead and quote. But once you've created a lead, you can create multiple quotes for that lead just by using this drop down. And for those people who are looking to very quickly use the software and are not necessarily ready to use it end to end, but want to start really benefiting from the agenda screens and the workflow management, some of the easy first stuff to set up and get moving for your company. One of the great things about the software is once your contacts are in either by import or connecting to your accounting software, you can start grabbing some of those contacts and creating jobs for them. and linking them up and say, okay, fantastic. I just want to put all the jobs I'm working in now so I can see my known capacity in the software, and then I can start working forward with the platform. And we'll come back and we'll do the process fully in future. We'll take advantage of your lead management and your quoting management and really get that visibility of job costing and estimation versus actual. But for now, I just want to get up and running in the software, and absolutely you can do that and grab a contact, start a job, whack what we call a baseline value in there, and get the team moving, which is awesome.